What's up, my freedom-loving friend? Censorship. Twitter and the World Economic Forum are increasing censorship. What are they doing? What do you need to know? And also, we're going to get to that, but also I'll share with you how I think that affects me and what I plan to do. I'll get to that at the end. But first, I want to give you a sincere thank you for all your support on the new JP Reacts channel. YouTube just sent me and my team the 100,000 subscriber achievement plaque. Thank you. Awards from big tech mean absolute piss all to me. But what is meaningful to me is being able to reach many freedom lovers via big tech platforms. So I'm very grateful for big tech and not appreciative of their tyranny. So get all that straight. All right. So Twitter announced it's got steps to protect the upcoming midterm elections from false and misleading narratives. And we'll get to Twitter first, then what the World Economic Forum is doing, our good friends run by Klaus Schwab. So let's take a look at this article, Twitter's announcement. It's picked up by all the news outlets, but I look at the Daily Wire because they're not a bunch of leftist lunatics. So we can see here, Twitter activates steps to protect midterms, fight misleading narratives. Twitter announced on Thursday that it would implement several measures to protect civic conversation in the run-up to the midterm elections, saying users deserve to trust the election conversations and content they encounter on the social media platform. I agree with that statement. Users do deserve to trust the election conversations and content they encounter. But guess what? If it's censored, they can't trust what they're encountering because you've got a leftist organization, Twitter, shaping the narrative, which makes it so untrustworthy. So this is once again gaslighting at its finest. They're saying the opposite of the reality. Welcome to 1984. It's the doublespeak. We think users deserve to trust the election conversations. Cool, while they do a very mistrustworthy thing of making the conversations less truthful. I see you, Twitter. An announcement titled, Our Approach to the 2022 U.S. Midterms, which, by the way, Democrats are way behind in the polls. If we have democracy elections, fair elections, we know the House, the Senate, it's going to be flipped red. There's no question about that. So the left is panicking. So in my opinion, this is Twitter positioning we're going to do our best to influence the election again. So this is how we're going to do it. And here's our narrative around why we're doing the thing to try to influence the election again. Our approach to the 2022 U.S. midterms, as they panic about it. The company explained that it aims to enable healthy civic conversation on Twitter while ensuring people have the context they need to make informed decisions. Guess what? People don't need freaking context. People have what's called a brain, a mind, experience, critical thinking, which provides all the freaking context they need. Twitter tries to treat people like they're kindergartners needing to be taught how to go to the bathroom. Nobody needs context here, Twitter. We're adults. The company is activating enforcement of its civic integrity policy, specifically designed to combat harmful, misleading information. Again, surrounding the 2022 midterm elections. Twitter will be rolling out various measures, including blocking certain accounts from sharing links or content it deems false. That's actually an accurate way to say it. It's not blocking content and accounts that are false. It's blocking content and accounts that it deems false. We've seen this throughout their track record. Twitter doesn't deem things false based on falsehood. It deems false things that are based on political motivation. Hunter Biden's laptop, according to Twitter, was absolutely false. That's Russian misinformation. That's False with a capital freaking F. Article goes on. People on Twitter will see a prompt prior to liking or sharing labeled tweets, and in cases where there is potential for harm associated with a false or misleading claim, nobody's ever been harmed on Twitter. Nobody's there physically. You can't hurt someone online outside of like doxing someone. The tweet may not be liked or shared to prevent the spread of misleading information, Twitter claimed. Like, we don't want people harmed. Like, how many broken legs have happened on Twitter? Like, do you ever fracture a collarbone on Twitter? Twitter. Y'all are funny. Twitter is also bringing back pre-bunks. What is a pre-bunk? The purpose of a pre-bunk is to get ahead of misleading narratives on Twitter, control the narrative, and to proactively address topics that may be the subject of misinformation. Dude, remember when you and I never heard the term misinformation? Before we lived in a country governed by a tyrannical regime, or a tyrannical regime trying to take over our country, censorship is one of their weapons. We didn't need the term misinformation because we weren't treated like kindergartners being taught how to go to the bathroom. We get to make up our own minds. Part of freedom is being able to think wrong. Part of freedom is being able to think right. And part of freedom is being able to choose what the F you want to believe and not have someone or an entity talk down to you. I think if humans were meant to be talked down to this way, we wouldn't have a brain. We'd just be these musculoskeletal systems without a brain, needing to have our hands held, needing to be spoon-fed what to think, what not to think. We would need the thought police. But guess what, thought police? We don't need you. Nobody watching this needs you. We all know how to think. Not that I have an opinion about this. Over the coming months, Twitter will place prompts directly on people's timelines in the US and in search when people type related terms, phrases, or hashtags. Likewise, the social media company will be educating users on how to identify fake news. Article goes on and says more, but that's the gist of this piece on Twitter. Now, here's a question for you. Do you think Twitter is politically biased? Do you think what they're identifying as misinformation, misleading, what needs a label, what needs to be banned, whose account needs to be deleted? Do you think that might have a little something to do with their political motivations and nothing to do with their oath to crusade for truth at all costs? That's a question I asked. So I looked up, what percent of Twitter employees are liberal? Here, as you can see, got a little answer. According to Fox News, Twitter employees still flooding Democrats with 99% of their donations for midterm elections. So out of all money donated to politicians from Twitter employees, 99% of it is donated to Democratic politicians. Is there any conflict of interest when those same employees are the ones determining what's a false narrative related to the election? What's misinformation? Could it be a little one-sided? I wonder if they'll be labeling more conservatives as false and misleading and banning them. It's obviously a sarcastic question because we know the answer. So with that said, I think there's a reason why Twitter's stock has just been falling. Obviously, Elon Musk came in, did his thing. From what I understand, he's pretty much out of the equation now. There might be some kind of lawsuit, but for the most part, it's a done deal. And before Musk stepped in, Twitter stock was just going down. And you think about it, CNN's ratings were just going down. Facebook, their stock was going down. Why? I think people are hungry for truth. And when they see platforms, media organizations that don't give you the truth, and even more than that, they try to block you from truth, people are leaving. People don't want much to do with that. Why? Because people, for the most part, are inherently intelligent. And intelligent people, truth is their North Star. But it gets better. What do our good friends at the World Economic Forum, who are protecting us from climate change by destroying the energy systems around the world to shove people in poverty, wanting you to own nothing and be happy about it by 2030, what are they doing for censorship? Well, as you can imagine, they're definitely doing something. Before we get to this piece, if you don't know about the World Economic Forum, where have you been? But essentially, the World Economic Forum, they govern governments who then enforce the World Economic Forum's policies onto the common people like you and I. Now, that's the aim. But when common people like you and I have the mindset of Martin Luther King Jr., who said one has a moral obligation to disobey unjust laws, the World Economic Forum's strength in our lives is effectively dog poop. When we have the I will not comply attitude towards unjust laws, mandates, tyranny, World Economic Forum has no influence over us. You with me? So, going back to another article on the Daily Wire, shout out Daily Wire, the World Economic Forum shares censorship plan for online abuse. Here's the funny thing that always amazes me about the World Economic Forum. Nobody elected them. Nobody elected any of them, including their head reptile, Klaus Schwab. Nobody elected them. But the illusion that what they're doing is okay comes by way of the captured government officials, Justin Trudeau, Joe Biden, the guy who ran Sri Lanka until their people invaded his palace because their lives were in such despair. The World Economic Forum controls these captured government officials who are elected and therefore enforce the laws on the people. So there's the illusion of kind of a democracy going on. But the deal is, who controls the elected officials is the World Economic Forum. Nobody elected any of them to anything. In fact, I think if they ran for office in a free and fair election, they would finish worse than Joe Biden did in the 1988 presidential election. And if you don't remember that, trust me, Joe didn't even come close. That was when Biden was in his prime. Back to the article here on the Daily Wire. The World Economic Forum shared a report last week outlining a plan to mitigate the dark world of online harm. How hypocritical. They're like, dude, we can have the dark world of offline harm in the real world that we're implementing, but the dark world of online harm, we got to do something about that. That is not okay. We can only harm people in the real world. It is not okay to do it online. Says the World Economic Forum's actions. Their words say something different. Mitigate the dark world of online harm by using human and artificial intelligence to censor bad actors who produce and promote child abuse, disinformation, and hate speech. Here's my opinion. They're throwing child abuse in there to capture people's morality. It's like, nobody wants child abuse. I am all against censorship, yet I do any kind of child abuse, obviously child pornography, never should be online. That should be, that's a felony. Censor felonies. Felonies are not okay. Free speech, that's not a felony. So I think they're putting the term child abuse in there just because they're if you're against our policy from us, your unelected leaders, then you're saying you want child abuse? No, you pieces of reptilian poop. We don't want child abuse, but what you're calling disinformation and hate speech, trying to censor that, we don't want that, you idiots. It goes on. Indbel Goldberger, probably reptilian name, Vice President of Trust and Safety, if they would just name these organizations what they are, like tyranny and danger, instead gaslighting, double speak. You gotta, what are we? We're tyranny and danger. Cool, we should call ourselves Trust and Safety. So Goldberger, Vice President of Trust and Safety at ActiveFence, a company that detects malicious online content, published an op-ed on the global organization's website, World Economic Forum, offering a solution to online abuse. Such solutions would enable a blend of AI and so-called subject matter experts. Nobody biased there. To detect nuanced, novel online abuses at scale before they reach mainstream platforms. Goldberger said an intelligence-fueled approach to content moderation would work by allowing human and AI teams to flag and remove high-risk items after transmitting millions of sources through training sets. Article can go on, you can check it out for yourself if you want, but basically what that means is they're using humans and AI. So AI doesn't detect a lot of things. They don't detect a lot of things in my videos because I speak the language of satire. So for instance, on my main channel, take one of the news videos for instance, it's satire. But if you take out that human element of satire and just kind of like AI read the script of the video, you'd look at it and be like, oh, well, this idiot toes the line of the narrative. Let's keep him on the platform. But here what their World Economic Forum is wanting to implement is humans who can detect things that AI can't, satire, someone taking the piss out of the tyrants in the left, they'll then be able to flag that like, ooh, no. That is misinformation. We don't like it. So then they can take that human element, run that into the AI to basically teach the AI how to recognize things that it otherwise couldn't recognize. And I would speculate satire would be one of them. Our good trusted friends at Twitter and our beloved friends at the World Economic Forum want to take more of your liberty. They want to take more of your free speech. The question is, are we going to allow that? So I think it's important to know what they're going to do. I mean, they're literally telling us what they're going to do. You have to take the propaganda out of it and see through it to what they're actually doing. And we can see it coming. Now, the question then is, what do we do? What am I going to do? Am I scared? What's it? Because I'll speak for myself. I've got very fortunate enough to have a big online audience. Here you are. So much of my livelihood and ability to take care of my family is tied to it. What am I going to do? Am I going to start making funny cat videos? Am I going to back down to this tyrannical threat, the potential tyrannical consequence of getting deplatformed? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Absolutely nothing. Stay the course. And for me, just like I have been the past 2.5 years of increased censorship, I'll be intelligent while saying what needs to be said. We know the hot buttons that are going to get you deplatformed. I always talk about the hot buttons, but I don't do it directly. I might speak to them through analogies and metaphors. But now the World Economic Forum is saying we'll use humans to detect those, which will then run through data sets of the AI and teach them how to better detect them. Cool. Is that a risk I'm willing to take? Why? It's even riskier not to. I think we're living in a time where the most dangerous thing we could do is try to play it safe. I've come to the realization, and I did early on during the pandemic, I would rather have to pick up cans on the side of the highway in order to feed my family in the name of being true to what needs to be done rather than playing it safe. Yeah, risk of getting kicked off the internet, YouTube, Twitter, whatever. Yeah, that's a big risk. But I realize I can't take away what really matters. I can't take away my connection to my family, my friends, contributing to a better world around me in any way I can. So what I've learned, and I've had to go through fear of coming to this stance based on principles. I've had to go through fear of what if I do lose everything? What I found is when you're willing to risk losing everything, you are not controllable. You are a free, sovereign person. And when you're willing to risk losing everything, you have everything. You have everything that matters. The things that can be taken away through the threats of censorship from Twitter, the World Economic Forum, big tech, anything they can take away doesn't really matter. Would it cause some stress, inconvenience? Yeah. But in the end, it won't really matter. Nobody ever arrived on their deathbed saying, you know what? I wish I would have crusaded for truth and freedom less and been on Twitter more. No. People on their deathbed would feel an emptiness around I didn't do more of what mattered. I didn't live my truth. I didn't connect to my friends and family enough. So conversely, When people aren't willing to risk losing everything, they have nothing. They have the illusion of keeping everything, but the everything they get to keep isn't what really matters. And usually in the desperation to keep everything that doesn't really matter, it keeps them from having everything that does matter. Now, I'm not saying my wish is for myself or you or any other truth speaker to lose all the things that don't really matter, online platforms and everything. Hopefully we get to stay online. But what I am saying is if we try to play it safe so we can keep everything that doesn't matter, we don't have what really matters. So with that said, I think increased censorship, good to know about it because it causes an increase of intelligence, an increase of discernment, and an increase of creativity on the part of the truth speakers. So we can continue to reach the people we want to reach to the best of our ability. And the willingness to risk losing it all allows us to have what really matters: our integrity, our truth, our principles, and dare I say, a bigger and better effect on the world around us. Why? Because we stand in truth and principles rather than standing in shallowness and fear so that we don't have to risk losing everything. So with that said, Twitter, World Economic Forum, they will be increasing censorship as the midterm elections come about because they are desperate. They are scared. They've tried to take too much, way too fast. The more they do that, the more they wake people up. The more they try to censor, the more they wake people up. So they're in a time of desperation. That's the deal on censorship, the update as we have it right now. But before you go, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video with potentially the best ad I've ever shot. You'll see it in a second, Sheath Underwear. Are you a man with balls? I think there's two types of people in this world. Men with balls and men without balls. Men with balls act accordingly by loving America, they're protectors and providers, and they only wear underwear that's made for men with balls. Sheath. Anything else is women's underwear. The founders of Sheath are obsessed with men's junk for some reason, but that's what's led them to uniquely craft Sheath to support men and their balls while looking and feeling good. Research done by the National Institute of Health and Underwear Safety shows that if you wear tighty whities, you're not only not a man, you might as well have a brown streak running down your underpants, because you probably already do. But there's hope. Because if you're a man with balls, you can now treat yourself accordingly by only wearing the best underwear on the planet. Sheath. Sheath are underwear made for real men with actual balls. How do we know this? Because Sheath is obsessed with men's balls to a suspicious degree, it's led to an innovatively designed pouch system with separate compartments for both your hot dog and meatballs that gives you maximum comfort and support while you're doing man stuff. More than that, Sheath is made from a fabric blend of modal and spandex that provides form-fitting comfort like no other. Here's my butt, and as you can see, the unique blend is cool to the touch and provides absorption. And that means no other underwear provides built-in protection against sweat and self-urination, quite like Sheath. I've been wearing Sheath for over 2 years now. During this time, my wife has gone from thinking I should move to Portland to open an artisan arts and crafts store to now respecting me for the man that I am. Not to mention my comfort and confidence are now dangerously high. If you're a man with balls, then treat yourself to the best underwear on the planet by going to sheathunderwear.com/awaken. I think you'll like them. Manspin! And use a discount code AWAKEN for 20% off. Because real men don't wear just any underwear. They also don't pay full price. At least not when there's a discount code available. Enjoy.